It's back. Welcome back to the final chapters of the 100-Day Wilderness Survival Challenge. Before we dive into today's intense moments, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of the thrilling adventures still waiting ahead. Now, let's get started. Good morning, Timber. He's already busy cutting up leftover moose hide to line the storage shed, then using it as a partition wall for his kitchen. This clever setup helps keep smoke from spreading through the entire shelter. Even though Timber has the most food of all the contestants, life out here is undeniably lonely. He talks to himself to pass the time, or heads down to the river to fish, just to break the monotony. Today, he's out checking his traps. He knows better than to get too comfortable with the stocked pantry. Hunting and fishing are daily routines for him. Timber treats this wilderness life like a peaceful retreat, almost like a vacation. Unfortunately, today's traps came up empty. But just as he reaches the spot where he once hunted a moose, he finds something surprising. The discarded rib bones are still there. With a few swings of his axe, he chops the bones down to make improvised fish hooks, adding to his arsenal of river traps before the surface completely freezes over. It's the morning of day 41 in the competition. This is the moment Sarah feels most confident. After all, she's from Alaska. Harsh winters and rugged terrain are nothing new to her. But despite her experience, hunting has brought her little success lately. And if that continues, it's only a matter of time before she'll have to tap out. Before starting the day's work, Sarah boils some water, a small ritual that both hydrates and warms her body. After that, she heads outside to soft firewood for heat. But suddenly, a sharp pain beneath her ribs forces her to stop. She knows exactly what's happening. The aches, the weakness, they're not a mystery. It's hunger. Her body has been without protein for days, and it's starting to break down. But the cruel irony is this. She needs strength to hunt, but she needs food to have that strength. And if she can't turn the tide soon, this journey might come to an end sooner than she hoped. It's past 11 p.m., and Dub is jolted awake by a gnawing hunger. Luckily, he has plenty of fish stored in his cache, enough to quiet the growling in his stomach. While waiting for his fish soup to cook, Dub makes a bold decision. He's going to check the fishing nets. Right now, in the middle of the night, he straps a headlamp onto his forehead and steps out into the freezing darkness. The air is filled with the eerie howls of wolves in the distance. It's unnerving, terrifying even, but Dub pushes forward. He's afraid of those vicious predators, no doubt, but he won't let that fear stop him. When he reaches the riverbank and inspects the net, disappointment hits. There's nothing there. Just as he turns back toward camp, he instinctively reaches into his pocket and realizes something dreadful. His glasses, his only pair, have broken again. Without them, Dub is nearly blind. Suddenly, the icy wilderness feels a whole lot more dangerous. Whatever plans he had for the rest of the night are now on hold. Fixing his glasses just became priority number one. Meanwhile, Timber is still wide awake. Lately, a sneaky gang of mice has been raiding his dried meat stash, forcing him to stay alert and find ways to deal with the little thieves. With winter tightening its grip, the days are getting shorter, and that shift has thrown off his usual routine. Sleeping too much feels uncomfortable, and honestly, a bit depressing. So Timber looks for small ways to keep himself occupied during these long, cold nights. Surprisingly, he's decided to adopt one of the mice. Yes, instead of chasing it away, he's been keeping a tiny one around as a companion. A little bit of company, however small, goes a long way in the wild. At this point, Dub's glasses frame was severely damaged, completely beyond repair. So, he found a few branches that were just the right shape to craft a new frame. After melting some paracord to use as hot glue, he carefully stuck the lenses onto the wooden frame. A wild edition pair of glasses was born. In the middle of the night, Sarah's chest pain flared up again, making it impossible for her to sleep. The pain seemed to be getting worse, and it was eerily similar to Isaiah's case. He had to leave the competition because of the same chest symptoms. If this continues, it could become life-threatening. After a night of agonizing pain, Sarah still didn't want to give up. She knew she had to get outside quickly and find food. But hunting in the middle of winter is no easy task. This is the time when most animals stay hidden in their dens, hibernating. There was nothing for her to catch. At that moment, a wave of disappointment washed over her, and the persistent chest pain crushed her willpower. She had no reason to stay any longer. Without hesitation, she reached for the satellite phone and announced her decision to withdraw from the competition. Farewell, Sarah, a brave and fearless warrior. Day 43. Only 3 contestants remain in the competition. William heads to his hidden food stash to retrieve the remaining beaver meat for another decent meal. This food hiding method has proven incredibly effective. No animal, not even mice or martens, has managed to get to it. With food becoming increasingly scarce in the winter, William only eats one of the beaver's legs. Now, he's waiting for the ice on the river to thicken. Once it can support his weight, he'll resume fishing. This process takes a lot of time, so he needs to be prepared with enough food and must ration it carefully. Day 45. The temperature has now dropped to -6 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze water. As usual, William goes out to check his traps. Unfortunately, he hasn't caught anything in the past few days, so he's been surviving on the small stash of food he had hidden. Noticing some bird tracks near his food cache, he quickly rushes over to inspect it. Getting to the stash under the rocks isn't easy, but he patiently removes them one by one. And then nothing. There's not a single piece of meat left inside. It's all been stolen. Shocked and unable to believe it, he frantically digs through the cache again, hoping to find something. But once again, he finds nothing. This loss hits him hard. Without food, the chances of him staying in the competition grow slimmer by the hour. Timber, what are you up to? Turns out he's crafting some fish hooks in preparation for his next fishing session. Since it's a family secret technique, he can only show us the final product once he's done. For now, all we can see is him pounding on some moose rib bones, around 100 of them, before moving on to sharpening each one carefully. And there we have it. The final result looks great. Seems like Timber has quite the talent for making hooks by hand. After finishing a few hooks, he chews on some dried meat, then heads out to check his traps. He's got 5 snare traps set up nearby, but until now, nothing has been caught. Today, though, he finally gets lucky and catches a snowshoe hare. After removing the inedible parts of the rabbit, he returns to camp and enjoys a hot, fragrant bowl of rabbit stew. Truly, some people can't eat all the meat they have, while others are still searching for their first bite. Here he is, the man who hasn't had food for days. To make things worse, his hidden stash was recently stolen. If he can't find something to eat today, he'll almost certainly have to withdraw from the competition. Today, he plans to build a ladder to ensure his safety while fishing on the frozen river. But suddenly a grouse flies by. Homesickness. He grabs his trusted grouse hunting tool and immediately follows the prey. This is the same tool he's used in previous episodes to catch many grouse. And today is no different. In the blink of an eye, he captures his target with ease. He quickly plucks the feathers and removes the insides, getting everything ready for a hearty grouse stew. It's now day 47, and Dub is going through some of the darkest days of this competition. He's been suffering from stomach pain and nausea for several days. But as a survival expert, he refuses to let the pain defeat him. Just as planned, after 3 full days of resting indoors, he's finally recovered. After taking a deep breath of fresh air, he heads out to check his fish traps. As expected, no fish. With the weather getting colder, the fish have likely migrated to deeper waters. Still, he has a few fish left in his reserves, so food isn't an immediate concern. He heads back to camp and cooks up a hot fish soup, perfect to restore his energy and warm his body. Once he's refueled, he'll start thinking about how to find more food next. By day 51 of the competition, Timber was fishing using the handmade hooks he crafted himself. But luck wasn't on his side. He still hadn't caught anything. All he could do was return to shelter to warm up. In the cozy warmth of his tent, he began carving small wooden toys, gifts for his kids when he finally returns home. Even though he's been eating well, he's lost a lot of weight since the first day of the challenge. The next morning, as usual, he headed to the river to check his fish traps. He approached his fishing rod and began pulling in the line. To his surprise, there it was, a fish waiting on the hook. He had finally caught his first fish using his homemade hook. Right now, Timber has the largest food reserve out of all the remaining contestants. As long as he avoids illness or wild animal attacks, it seems almost impossible for him to lose. On a snowy and foggy morning, it looked like something had been caught in Dub's fishing net. It turned out to be a giant whitefish, so big it could feed him for at least a week. For now, he just needs to hold out until the ice thickens enough for safe fishing. Although only 3 contestants remain, the top-tier survival skills they've all shown suggest that this could become the longest-running competition in the show's history. The competition entered its 55th day, and at this point, the most comfortable contestant was probably Timber. He had dried meat to eat and a storage full of fish. As usual, he left camp to check his traps, hoping to catch something. After a while, he reached his trap location, only to be deeply disappointed. One snare had been triggered, but the prey had escaped. The rest of the traps were completely empty. Even though the moose he caught could sustain him for up to 100 days, Timber always tried to find more food, just in case something stole his supplies. While he was warming himself by the fire, he suddenly heard loud noises coming from his food storage. He rushed out and saw a wolverine. Without hesitation, he grabbed his axe and ran toward the creature to chase it away. On the morning of day 56, Timber followed the footprints left the night before and discovered that all of his fishing bait had been stolen. Although the creature hadn't reached his meat storage yet, Timber wanted to be cautious. Determined to eliminate the threat before it could return, he decided to hunt the animal down. He tracked its footprints to a hidden spot about 200 meters from his camp. There, he began setting up as many snares as possible, fully committed to catching the thief once and for all. It's now day 57. Ever since William caught that grouse, his spirits have improved greatly. He's full of plans for the coming days, and the first task today is fishing by the river. Thanks to the bridge he built earlier, he can easily walk out to the middle of the river. He drills a hole in the ice and drops his bait. Then, he starts a fire nearby and prepares a meal, the leftover grouse from a few days ago. It's the last of his food reserves, as the stockpile back at his shelter is now completely empty. Just as he takes a bite of the juicy meat, the fishing rod makes a sound. Without hesitation, he rushes over and carefully pulls the line, making sure not to lose the catch. It's a huge fish, probably the biggest one he's caught so far. He quickly cleans the fish and removes the inedible parts. But instead of carrying the entire fish back to camp, worried it might get stolen like before, he ties it with a rope and lowers it into the river at the same spot where he set his net. This way, the cold water will keep it fresh for longer, and it's much safer than storing it inside the shelter. Timber found a large moose antler and tied it to a piece of driftwood, planning to turn it into a musical instrument. He wanted something to play whenever there was nothing else to do, something to lift his spirits. It seems he's really excited about this self-made string instrument. He plays it day and night, pouring his energy into each note, creating melodies right in the heart of the wilderness. Lately, William has been limiting his time outside the camp. With daylight hours growing shorter and nights stretching longer, the cold outside has become almost unbearable. At the break of dawn, he quietly made his way to the frozen riverbank, planning to carve out a new fishing hole. Every move had to be precise. One misstep, and he could fall right into the icy water below. Once he dropped the baited line, the trap was set. Next, he started building a makeshift freezer out of ice blocks from the river itself. He carefully carved and stacked the blocks into a rectangular shape. Once the lid was added, it was done. A frozen fish locker, crafted right on the river. Looks like his catch now has a brand new home. Bet that fish is thrilled. It was a beautiful morning, and finally he set out to do some fishing. Thanks to his homemade snowshoes, he made his way to deeper waters with ease. Once there, he used his axe to carve a hole through the thick ice. It took a while, but he eventually broke through. A good sign, actually, since it meant the ice was thick enough to walk on safely. But things weren't looking good. His food supply back at camp was running dangerously low. If he couldn't catch anything today, he might have to go to bed hungry. So he waited and waited. Half a day passed. Still nothing. No fish even nibbled at the bait. With his fingers numb and the cold creeping into his bones, Dub had no choice but to head back to camp. And then came the worst part. The only food he had left was a piece of fish tainted by mouse droppings a few days earlier. He had tried to avoid it, holding out hope for something better. But now, there were no other options. So, with a heavy heart and an empty stomach, Dub cooked the contaminated fish. Because in this game, you eat or you go home. Day 61 has arrived, and if there's anyone smiling right now, it's Timber. His food storage is packed, his firewood is stacked high. Life in the wild doesn't get much better than this. Today, Timber decides to do a full inventory of his supplies. He carefully sorts the meat into two groups. The softer cuts go into the shelter for extra protection, while the rest are left stored in the main cache. That's when he notices something troubling. Some of the thick slices of dried meat have started to mold. It's not a huge amount, but even so, every single piece is precious out here. Throwing them away would mean tossing out part of his hard-earned treasure. So, Timber takes no chances. He sets aside the moldy portions for treatment. After all, this stash is his lifeline. With a stockpile like that and his sharp survival instincts, Timber might just be the man to beat in this brutal competition. Today, Dub is once again out on the frozen river, determined to catch some fish. But this time, he's trying a new method. He's weaving a net. With daylight hours growing shorter by the day, he knows he has to move fast. He carefully chops through the thick ice to create a hole, then lowers his handmade net into the freezing water, hoping a fish will wander into the trap. Not stopping there, he digs another hole nearby to try line fishing as well. Anything to improve his chances. Dub isn't just doing this to survive. He's here for something more, $500,000 to pay off his mother's debts. That thought keeps him going, even as the cold bites through his gloves. And the silence from the holes tells him he's caught nothing again. As the sky darkens and the wind picks up, he finally admits defeat and returns to camp. His hands empty and his heart heavy. 2 days. No fish. No food. No hope. He tries to distract himself, to stay positive, but eventually, the weight of it all becomes too much. Despite his best efforts, the tears come quietly, and they don't stop. Day 62 of the challenge, and Timber is out ice fishing on the frozen lake. He still has 2 steel hooks and a few handmade fishing lines left. He starts by using his axe to chisel a hole through the thick sheet of ice, then drops a baited line into the freezing water. But he doesn't stop there. He moves to another spot, digs a second hole, and sets another line to boost his chances of landing a catch. Out here, every opportunity counts. After setting his traps, Timber heads back to camp, carrying a small bundle of dry firewood. He starts a fire to warm himself. But suddenly, the flames roar to life, much stronger than expected. Thinking quickly, he grabs a pot of water and slams it down over the blaze, trying to smother the fire before it can spread to his shelter. Moments later, the fire is finally under control. Crisis averted. Today, during a hunting trip, William once again came across a grouse. He reached for his trusty bird-catching stick, and just like before, it delivered him a hearty meal. A lucky start to what would turn out to be a very rewarding day. Riding that wave of good fortune, he made his way to the river to check on his fish trap. With hope building in his chest, he slowly pulled the trap out of the water. And sure enough, inside was a large fish. It was a total win for William. He took the fish and stored it carefully in his homemade ice refrigerator, adding more blocks of ice to reinforce the walls and keep everything safe. But just as he was about to head back to camp, he spotted a weasel sneaking around, clearly trying to steal his food. Luckily for William, his reinforced icebox was solid. The weasel left empty-handed. Another long, exhausting day has passed, and right now, Dub is truly struggling with survival. It's been days since he last caught a fish. If things don't start turning around soon, there's a real chance he might have to tap out and head home. But today, he returns to the frozen river, determined to give it one more try. He drills several holes in the thick ice, then carefully sets up his baited hooks. Not stopping there, he picks a nearby spot to sit and fish, allowing him to keep an eye on the other traps at the same time. Time passes slowly until finally, one of the lines starts to move. He rushes over, his hands steady but hopeful. Dub gently pulls the line, and success. A large fish breaks the surface. Just like that, everything changes. The gloom that had clouded his face for days is now replaced by a bright smile. The sudden flare-up from yesterday's fire has left Timber's shelter partially damaged. So today, he's focusing on repairs. He carefully takes down the moose hide walls, then inspects every inch for small holes and weak spots. Each tier is patched up with care, because out here, even the tiniest draft can be dangerous. Overall, Timber's situation seems pretty solid. He has food, he has firewood, and his shelter is still standing. But there's one major concern: his weight. Even though he's been eating regularly, he's visibly thinner, down 30 pounds since the beginning of the challenge. If this trend continues, he may not pass the next medical check. It's now day 65, and the final 3 contestants are still holding strong. The temperature has dropped to a chilling 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Today, Timber heads down to the river to check his fishing traps. On the way, he spots a marten perched on a tree branch. It almost seems to greet him before silently disappearing into the snowy woods. The snow is deeper today, and while the river hasn't fully frozen over yet, it's slippery and dangerous. Every step requires caution, but the traps hold nothing. No fish, no movement, just silence. Disappointed, Timber starts the trek back to camp. He's been out in the snow too long. His feet are starting to go numb. Each step becomes more painful. By the time he reaches camp, his toes are nearly frostbitten. Thankfully, it's not too severe. With fire and rest, he should recover. Morning of day 66. Once again, William manages to catch a grouse, using nothing more than his handmade stick. By now, that simple tool has helped him bring down 7 grouse. More effective than a bow and arrow. After plucking the feathers and cleaning out the bird, he heads down to the river to check his fishing net. Everything feels still, too quiet, until he pulls up the net. 1 fish, then 2. That makes 4 fish total, counting the 2 already tucked away in his homemade freezer. With this kind of stockpile, William is gaining a serious advantage, as this place prepares to sink into 6 months of darkness. Early morning, and Dub is already on the move. With his food supply completely gone, he has no choice but to check the fishing traps, hoping today won't be another day of hunger. He reaches the first line and begins to pull. A fish. Luck is finally on his side. After subduing his catch, Dub heads to the next trap. Another fish. It's turning out to be a very lucky day. He stores part of his catch in a hanging pouch, suspended from a tree to keep it safe. The rest he takes back to camp. Today, Dub gets to eat fish soup. And for once, he's not going to bed hungry. Day 68. Timber has been keeping an eye on the movements of moose. But now, they've completely disappeared. He suspects they've migrated toward Jake's territory. Given Jake's strength, he figures Jake could easily take one down. What Timber doesn't know is that Jake tapped out back on day 21. Today's task is gathering firewood. The cold is getting worse. The need for warmth is now more urgent than ever. He collects as much as he can, preparing for whatever the weather brings. Back at camp, he lies down by the fire, soaking in a rare moment of comfort. But then, a burning sensation in the soles of his feet. To his shock, the heat has melted the soles of his boots. Luckily, the inner lining is still intact. After fixing up his boots, Timber heads out to the frozen lake to check his fish lines. With axe in hand, he breaks through the thick ice and slowly begins pulling up the line. Then, there it is, a big, beautiful fish wriggling at the end of the hook. It's been a long time since he's felt this kind of joy, a hard-earned catch in the dead of winter. He cleans the fish and makes his way back to camp. By the firelight, the smell of roasted fish fills the air. His hands warm, his stomach full. By day 71, Dub had a rough night. Something had come creeping around his camp. Judging by the tracks it left behind, he was certain it was a marten. a clever little thief of the forest. Feeling uneasy, he rushed over to check his food cache. Thankfully, it was still untouched. But just moments after returning to his shelter, he noticed something else. A piece of fish had been dragged away. Another thief. With so many hungry visitors around, there's no way to guard everything at once. So Dub decided to outsmart them. He split the fish into several portions, wrapped each one in an old shirt, and prepared to hang them high in the trees. Once again, Timber seemed to be thoroughly enjoying his new hobby. In just 2 days, he had created an entire army of wooden toy soldiers for himself. But of course, he didn't forget his daily responsibilities. As usual, he headed down to the river to check his fish traps. He carefully examined each one, but there wasn't a single sign of movement. Disappointed, he reset the traps and made his way back to camp. That night, something fell off. His feet were starting to go numb. They felt ice cold, yet when he touched them, they burned with a strange, searing heat. A terrifying thought crossed his mind. He might be suffering from thermal burns caused by extreme cold. If the injury was serious, it could eventually lead to amputation. After a sleepless night due to the pain in his foot, Timber realized just how serious things might become. Usually, staying inside the shelter would ease the numbness. But every time he stepped outside, the cold would make it worse. The freezing temperatures only aggravated the problem. To prevent the situation from getting any more serious, he knew he had 2 options: raise the temperature inside the shelter, or keep his body moving to stimulate circulation. Sometimes, even something as simple as a sip of hot tea can help bring warmth back to the body. Day 74. Today is William's son's birthday. For the first time in 15 years, he can't be there to wish his boy a happy birthday. All he can do is pray to God, hoping his son is happy, healthy, and safe. He hopes this challenge will end soon, so he can return to the people he loves most. After building his morning fire, William walks to his storage shed and cuts off the head of a fish to make soup. It's a simple meal, but today it carries deeper meaning. After simmering it for over an hour, the fish head soup is finally ready. He eats it slowly, gratefully, thinking of home. With plenty of food in storage, Dub spends most of his time resting inside his shelter. It's the best way to stay warm and conserve energy. Today is physical check-in day. One by one, the contestants are checked for health and safety, and all of them are cleared to continue. But not everyone is happy. Dub had secretly hoped that the plane would land near his camp and announce him as the winner. Instead, it just flew overhead and disappeared into the distance. From that moment on, Dub's spirit began to collapse. Not physically, but deep inside, he felt like he couldn't hold on much longer. It's now day 76. With a bag full of moose meat, Timber is feeling pretty comfortable with his current life. The meat may be a little tough and chewy, but the taste? Absolutely worth it. Even with plenty of food stored away, he never stops searching for more. It's part of the daily rhythm now. Today, he heads back to the river to check his fishing traps. But despite all his efforts, not a single fish has taken the bait for days. Left with no other option, he grabs a piece of frozen fish from his reserve and makes a warm bowl of soup. Not exactly a feast, but enough to keep going. At the same time, William is feeling homesick, especially when thoughts of his wife come flooding in. He can't hold back the tears. All he wants now is for this challenge to end, so he can return home and enjoy a happy life with his family. Today, William sets out to check his rabbit traps to see if any have been caught in the past few days. But nothing. The traps are completely empty. However, he notices something: a few small footprints in the snow, fresh ones. With renewed focus, he quickly moves some of his traps to this new location, hoping it will increase his chances of catching a rabbit. After resetting the traps, he heads to the river to check his fishing setup. Unfortunately, there's no fish today either. And to make things worse, he notices the water level has dropped. That's not a good sign. It's now day 78. The temperature has dropped to around minus 20 degrees Celsius. To fight off the boredom and homesickness, Timber has been crafting small wooden toys, something to play with during his downtime. It helps him forget, just for a while, about how much he misses home. As usual, he gets up and heads out to check his traps. But today, he's checking his rabbit snares instead of the fishing lines. He carefully walks through the snow to the trap site, and there it is. A rabbit has been caught. His first one. After cleaning and preparing the rabbit, he heads back to camp and enjoys a warm bowl of delicious rabbit stew. Meanwhile, on Dub's side, he's still tirelessly fishing, but again, he catches nothing. Another day of effort with no reward. He has no choice but to return to camp and rest. With his diet lacking, he's starting to feel colder every time he goes outside. If this food shortage continues, and the weather gets any colder, he might not make it much longer. Back at camp, he uses the last bits of his fish meat to make a pot of fish stew, hoping it will restore some strength and help warm his body. But beyond the hunger and the cold, the crushing loneliness begins to take its toll. He hasn't spoken to anyone in a very long time, and that thought, that silence, keeps echoing in his mind, slowly unraveling his emotions. Another long night has passed. William is now preparing his strategy to survive the coldest days yet to come. He knows exactly what needs to be done. Gather as much food and firewood as possible. That's his only chance to win. First up, checking the rabbit trap. And this time, luck is finally on his side. After a long dry spell, he's caught a rabbit. He heads back to camp, starts a fire, and begins cleaning the animal, removing the inedible parts with practiced hands. Then, the rabbit goes into the pot. It simmers over the flames, filling the shelter with a warm, rich aroma. Now at last, he gets to enjoy a well-earned meal, one he caught, cleaned, and cooked with his own hands. In a different turn of events, after days of failing to catch any fish and completely running out of food, Dub found himself at a breaking point. The pressure, the silence. His heart was pounding faster with each moment. If only luck had been on his side, maybe things wouldn't have ended this way. In a state of panic, he made the call, reaching out to the production team, and requested to withdraw from the competition. They responded quickly. Within moments, a rescue team arrived and safely brought him home. Thank you and farewell, brave warrior Dub. We wish you good health and hope you'll continue to pursue your passion with the same heart and courage. After 83 long days, only 2 contestants remained. At this point, Timber was doing nothing more than staying in his shelter, eating dried meat, and gathering firewood. He still had plenty of food, more than enough to survive 100 days. But the truth was, he no longer felt the desire to win. He came here and did everything he had set out to do, and now he just wanted to go home. In the end, Timber picked up the satellite phone and officially announced his withdrawal from the competition. It was a truly unexpected ending. A contestant with plenty of food left, choosing to leave on his own terms. But for Timber, there was no regret. He had achieved everything he came for. After Timber announced his withdrawal, only one contestant remained, William. He was resting in his shelter when the production team suddenly arrived for a routine health check. As usual, they ran all the standard tests, and everything looked good. But this time, there was a surprise. They had brought his wife with them. She slowly walked up to him and gently patted his shoulder. He turned around, and in that moment, they embraced each other and laughed with joy. After so many days apart, William was finally reunited with his wife. And then, the production team made the official announcement. William was the winner of Season 11. Congratulations to the new king of the Ultimate Survival Challenge. A truly beautiful ending to an unforgettable journey.